About a year ago, I made a couple of videos about my experience of taking part in National Novel Writing Month. In those videos, I mentioned that I used a tool called Scrivener to beat the challenge. I've now used Scrivener for the NaNoWriMo challenge multiple times and in several other writing projects, but what do I actually think about it as a writing tool in 2024? Flashback to 2019, and out of curiosity, I decided to Google what applications writers use when they're putting their novels together. I wanted to know if there was a viable alternative to Microsoft Word, which I'd been using for my other writing projects, including my PhD thesis. During my research, I heard lots of good things about Scrivener, so I decided to take the plunge and test it in anger during my first NaNoWriMo. I've subsequently used Scrivener to enter all but one of the NaNoWriMo challenges over the last 5 years. I've also transferred some of my other writing projects into Scrivener and taken some time to explore its various features outside of the pressure cooker of the NaNoWriMo challenge. The TLDR version is that I would definitely recommend checking it out, but with a few caveats and provisos. More on that in a minute. So, this is what Scrivener looks like when you fire it up and go to start a new project. It presents you with a number of templates that you can use. This can be very daunting, particularly compared to creating a blank document in something like Word, but it includes instructions on how to use the tool as well as generating common elements that you will be expected to include with your manuscript when you submit it to an agent or publisher, which is a nice touch. You assemble your novel using a series of folders and documents. So, for example, I usually create folders for each act and then each chapter of my story, and then if a chapter has multiple scenes, you can add multiple documents to that folder. You then write into each document, editing and formatting it just like you would in any other application. This makes it easy to plot out your novel by inserting certain key scenes as you build up your story. You can also move stuff around, so if you think a scene or chapter needs to go earlier in your story, you can just drag the files around. So it's a little more complicated than writing in something like Word. The interface can be a little daunting, and there's definitely a learning curve and some clunkiness, but it makes the process of writing a large project such as a novel so much easier. Where it does get tricky is that you can't just save your story as a Word document or PDF when you're finished. To turn your Scrivener project into a manuscript, you have to compile it. In this way, Scrivener is not dissimilar to LaTeX or whatever it's called. This extra step of compiling your document may seem daunting, and it can be a fiddly process, particularly if you want things like chapter headings to be properly formatted and numbered, but it's not really that complicated when you finally get used to it. There is a 30-day free trial of Scrivener available, after which you have to pay at time of writing £55 for a license. However, I would add that it does occasionally go on sale, and I'm pretty sure I got it for much less than that. Now, this sounds like a lot, particularly when Microsoft and Adobe are charging such apparently reasonable rates for monthly subscriptions instead of large one-off payments. However, the license includes a lifetime of free updates, and there has been a fairly major update to the Windows version of Scrivener since I bought it, and I didn't have to pay any extra. The small print does say that if they release Scrivener 4, then Scrivener 3 users will have to pay an upgrade fee, but you can at least continue to use Scrivener 3, it's not like it will self-destruct when Scrivener 4 comes out. Remember when companies used to do stuff like this instead of taking the piss? Simpler times. Now, LaTeX is free, but it's even more complicated to use. After all, it's designed for academic writing and for collaboration, whereas Scrivener seems more designed for solo use and is aimed at a slightly less technical-minded audience. Of the two, I would definitely recommend Scrivener from personal experience. However, I still do use Microsoft Word. Scrivener hasn't supplanted it completely in my writing toolbox. Word still has some advantages over Scrivener, particularly when it comes to things like spelling and grammar checking, which I'll come back to in a moment. If I'm writing a short story, anything less than 10,000 words, or if I'm writing articles paper, or for example the script for this video, then I use Word, or increasingly Google Docs. It's just easier and more convenient. For longer projects, however, I find Scrivener to be the superior tool. Despite some clunkiness, it excels at managing larger projects, especially ones where scenes and entire chapters might need to be shuffled around. It makes it so much easier to plan out and navigate a larger project, inserting content, archiving stuff, generally managing the complexities of a full-length novel, as well as things like including reference images, notes, character bios, and so on. I really wish that I had discovered Scrivener before I started my PhD, as it would have made the process of writing my 80,000 word thesis so much easier. Part of the reason that I'm doing this review now is because a lot has changed in the last couple of years. A major new version has been released for Windows, bringing the PC and Mac versions more in line with each other. There have also been a few other changes that affect the experience. One thing that always bothered me about Scrivener was the lack of inbuilt spelling and grammar features. If I wanted to spell check a chapter of my story, then I would have to copy it out of Scrivener into Word, do the corrections and then copy it back, whilst making sure that all the formatting doesn't get messed up in the process. Not too much work, but a bit of a blag, especially when these features really should be built in or available via some kind of plugin. This has at least been improved, albeit not by the Scrivener developers themselves. The latest update to Grammarly for Windows will now let you check for spelling and grammar errors in any application, including Scrivener, which makes it much easier to work with. It's still easy to recommend Scrivener on its own merits, but with this new integration with Grammarly, it definitely makes that recommendation a little bit easier. Final thoughts then, well, I genuinely believe that Scrivener played a large part in my success during the NaNoWriMo challenge, as well as aiding me in some of my other writing projects. It just makes it easier to manage a large-scale endeavour such as writing a full-length novel. As with most things, it may not be for everyone. I am a software engineer, so the idea of having to compile my work into its final form isn't that scary for me, but that might be a deal breaker for some people, as will the lack of built-in spelling and grammar support. The thing that I would say is that Scrivener is available with a free trial, and Grammarly has a free tier of features, so I definitely recommend trying them both out for yourself if you're serious about writing full-length novels. Scrivener has certainly been a boon to my writing, and it may just do the same for you. For more writing videos and other nerdy stuff, be sure to subscribe, and why not check out my other NaNoWriMo videos. Thank you very much for watching, take care of yourselves, and goodbye for now.